Hey guys, Stucky here. You ever wanted to try the best version of the Action Network app? Well, now is the perfect opportunity to do so because we have a special offer to celebrate the month of March and the NCAA tournament. You can get pro access for just $9.99 for the first month. That will give you access to things like Sean Kerner's player prop projections, which are invaluable, real-time money percentages, and our model's biggest edges, and much more. All you have to do is head over to actionnetwork.com/madness. That's actionnetwork.com/madness and get there before the deal expires. Cheers. Looking at the Patriot League tournament, it has been absolute shock in this tournament historically. This is the 34th Patriot League championship. The 1 or 2 seed has won it 30 of the 33 times. The only exceptions, 2022, number 3 seed Boston. Poor Boston, couldn't go to the dance after they won it. 2016 was the wild year. Number 9 seed Holy Cross won it. And then in 2015, number 4 seed Lafayette won it. That's it. Colgate, heavy favorite here. They are the top overall seed, going for their 4th straight title. They're minus 250, minus 275, depending on the book. They'll play the winner of Army Holy Cross, who they should handle. They would get to the semis. I should note 10 teams are in this field. Top 6 get a bye. So you have Army Holy Cross and Navy Loyola. Your alma mater, Calgary's Loyola, will play in just 2 horrendous first round games. Boston got the number 2 overall seed. Lafayette, Lehigh, pretty intriguing 3-6 matchup, as is American Bucknell in the 4-5. I have a long shot. I'll make a case for, but Calvary, I'll get your thoughts first. What are you seeing in the Patriot League?
Well, first, I appreciate that history lesson because it has been all chalk, as you mentioned, and it's been all Colgate, in recent years. They're 14-1 straight up in this tournament, dating back to 2018, 12-3 against the spread in that stretch. And when you look at where they've been in the last 5 years, you start to look at the consistency of their performance against the KenPom numbers. 115th last year, 117th, 89th, 118th, 126th. This year, though, they're 143rd coming in, but the huge differential, just, year over year. Last year, they were 43rd by season's end in KenPom. This year, offensively, 207th. So this is the very first time when you look at this Raider team that they have to get it done and grind games out. They're 106th on the defensive end, according to KenPom. That's by far Langle's best in about 10 years. So it's really impressive to see them do that. But because they haven't been able to shoot at the same clip, usually it was them, playing 4 out, banging down threes, and really, overwhelming teams with these waves of scoring. They weren't able to do anything in the non-conference, just a close loss to Syracuse. That was their high water mark. They got, run off the floor against Yale, Cornell, Harvard out of the Ivy, hammered by Arizona, Illinois. So there's not as much fear factor. And then when you look at their actual personnel, their leading scorer is guard Braden Smith. But at just 12 points per game, when you look at his performance in Pat League play, he had 6 single-digit games in the past 6 weeks. So they don't necessarily have that killer on the perimeter. Keegan Reynolds is really their only reliable man. He's their man in the middle. He's big. He's 6'10", 250 pounds. Keegan Records, sorry, excuse me. And in the last 6 games coming in the tournament, he's playing his best basketball. So 15 points per game, 7 rebounds, 2 stocks. He's done some really nice work in their games against Lehigh. He averaged a double-double with 2 blocks. But if he doesn't play at that level, they're going to lose one or probably both of those meetings against the Mountain Hawks. They're both 3-point decisions. So you basically talked about their path, and it's as easy as it comes. They get to play on their home floor. They're getting the layup against the winner of Army Holy Cross in the quarters. But then it starts to get maybe a little bit interesting because Americans in that 4-5 game with Bucknell, the Eagles just upset them on their home floor a week ago, 66-64. They slowed the pace of that game against Colgate way down. Matt Rogers, their power forward, had his best game of the year, arguably, with 23 points and 7 boards. So I think right away it starts to get interesting for them. But it's still a conversation of sleeper and deep sleeper, not necessarily somebody who I would advocate is really going to win this tournament, because at minus 200, minus 250, Colgate, I think, is properly priced. But I don't want to steal your thunder. I'll kick it to you first, Stuck. Who do you like to win this thing?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Colgate's defense is better, but their offense, you mentioned it. Offensive efficiency, 43rd last year. They're 207th right now. they missed Tucker Richardson and Oliver Lynch-Daniels on the perimeter. You know, Smith's a great facilitator. They also have a really good backup center in Jeff Woodward. So their centers are really good with records in Woodward. And then you have Moffitt, who's a stretch four, shoots like close to 40% from three. But instead of Richardson and Lynch-Daniels, you now have Cummins and Jalen Cox. They're very raw, and they're just not as good right now offensively, which leaves them vulnerable. They had 2 losses in league play. Both came at home to American and Lafayette. They actually swept the road. But I like Lehigh. Shop around. You can find a 12-1 out there. There's a bunch of 8-1s. Don't bet that. You can find a 12-1. I like Lehigh. I have them power rated as the second best team in the league. They lost to Colgate twice, both by 3 points. And one of those games, they didn't have Keith Higgins, who's arguably their best player. He comes off the bench now, but
Yeah, what do you make of that stuff, by the way? Because the way he was playing, I figured they were getting, his sea legs back and they were going to reinsert him. But now it seems like, they just have a preference to bring him off the bench. And that way the scoring load isn't totally falling on Tyler Whitney-Sydney, because he's still played very, very well. But I think, if I'm reading it correctly, I think Dr. Reed is just interested in getting something out of his second line and letting Higgins lead the scoring there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I also think that, like you mentioned, like his sea legs and coming back from injury, they might have just been a little bit more cautious with him. And then you might get, more minutes here. I mean, he played 23 and 20, but this is a guy who played the past 2 games. He would play like 35, 32.
Right, yeah.
30 minutes a game. So I think that you'll get closer to a full workload here. And he's by far their most efficient player. And if you look, like Lehigh's the number 6 seed, but I have him power rated number 2. He missed 9 games. And if you look at their efficiency margin in those 9 games, 320 per Torvik. This is a team that was outside the top 300. Since he came back, 5-2, they're about 185th in the country in overall efficiency. In comparison, Colgate's around like 145th. So they're not too far off. They went 5-2 since he came back. They lost to Colgate by 3. And they lost to Boston in overtime by 2. So, yeah, I think this is the second best team. And I think that there's a little bit of value in Lehigh. They're not going to stop Colgate inside with their interior. But if they could just make some threes, they went 4 of 20 at home on Saturday and still had a chance to win that game. They just couldn't hit an outside shot. But I think Colgate's a little vulnerable. I don't see any value in minus 220, and Lehigh at 12-1 would be my pick to cut down the nets as a rare non-top 2 seed. Greg, what are you saying in the Patriot League?
You nailed my sleeper. It's Lehigh, and I had it at 12-1 as well. Look, they're going to have to win the first game. Obviously, you don't win a championship without winning the first game. But as far as draw goes, I think it's a great draw for them, right? They swept Lafayette during the season.
Lafayette's lost 6 of 7, including 2 to Lehigh. So they kind of faded down the stretch.
Right. They're faltering. And if you just assume that they can hold serve there, then they're right where they want to be, right? Because you don't see either of, in my opinion, the 2 best players in this conference, and Matt Rogers and Braden Smith, who are on the other side of the bracket. So, look, this team has won 3 straight away games, too, coming into this. So to kind of be that road dog mentality in the quarterfinal, I think that works. I think the value is definitely there. You mentioned the Higgins numbers, just to reiterate, lost 6 of 9 without him, got him back, won 5 straight games the moment he was active again. And then their 2 most recent losses to end the year came by a combined 5 points. Like, that screams team that is undervalued here to me. So I'm with you. I really like Lehigh. The only other sleeper I would throw out, and this just comes down to, do you believe in Colgate or do you not? I think you guys laid out nicely. Like, they're clearly the best team here, but this isn't the traditional Colgate offense that we're used to. That means there's value. And how about a team that just beat them 10 days ago, right? American plus 750. Look, it really is just 3-point variance with that team. They shoot the 31st most 3-point attempts per game in the country. They're 324th at preventing 3-point attempts. But if you're trying to take a shot on an underdog to actually take down the best team in this league, one that has every single game rely on 3-point variance, I think it is a decent risk to take. So to me, I feel like there's value on either of those two teams, depending on what you think of Colgate. I would sprinkle both, and hopefully, one of them finds their way to the championship. Maybe both find their way to the championship, and you're in a really good spot.
You have Bucknell who dominated this. They were clearly the best team, right? Like so much better than everybody. And then lately, Colgate has been so much better than everybody. They're still the best team, but they're not. The gap isn't as wide as it's been because their offense isn't as electric. So yeah, I don't hate American. American fits the profile because, as you said, 3-point variance. They also give up a ton of threes. So like, there's just 3-point variance on both sides, and then they just grind the game down to a halt. They play so slow, fewer possessions, higher variance. So you got a limited possession game with a ton of 3-pointers. And I also should mention Patriot League. You have the higher seed hosts all of the games, and it's not like, look, if Colgate, whoever hosts the title, will get a good home crowd. No disrespect, Calabrese, to your Greyhounds, but we're not talking about the best home court advantages, like Lafayette's home court advantage against Lehigh. I mean, these are what's the vibe going to be there? So yeah, there's not like the best home court advantage in Easton, Pennsylvania. I'll tell you that. And I also will say, or do you have any comment on the home court advantage, Calabrese?
I do. I also, I have a couple things to bring up. First, though, is for these teams that need to be the road warriors. Yes, you got to play on the campus sites, as we pointed out, but it's spread out. For a team like Lehigh, it's March 7th, March 10th, March 13th. So it's not like you need to win 3 games in 3 days, which some of these leagues do put you behind the 8 ball. So in terms of travel for a team that I'm going to mention, it's very reasonable. But let me back up for a second, because I agree with you guys on Lehigh. At 12-1, I think it's a must-play number. And I brought up Dr. Reed before. He's been in this league for a long time. I think he understands how he has to win in this spot. A lot of people remember him from that upset of Duke in 2012. He knows in this spot, Lehigh's the fastest tempo team in the league, 54th nationally. And they have a disruptive defense. That's their only thing that they do well on the defensive end.
Force turnovers.
They turn teams over 16% of their possessions, which is top 100. And the stat that I love is Evan Maya's opponent adjust metric, which indicates, do they play better against better teams? The number 1 team in the Patriot League in that regard is Lehigh. Also worth noting, which team plays down to their competition the most often? Colgate. So I think this is kind of lining up if Lehigh can put this together. I'll throw one more team out here. If you can get them 30-1 or longer, I think Bucknell's an interesting team coming out of the 4-5 game. And the reasons are pretty simple. They're the second tallest team in the Patriot League behind Colgate. So they have the size. Noah Williamson in particular, legit 7-footer out of Latvia. He's improved leaps and bounds from his freshman year to his sophomore year. And since January 20th, he's had 5 games with 3 or more stocks. So he's been a real difference maker on the defensive end. Jack Forrest, if he gets hot from 3-point range, he shoots almost 38% from there. And Bucknell plays incredibly slow. You mentioned American. Bucknell's 321st in tempo. So either want a team that's going to speed it up to take someone out of their comfort zone or really slow it down. And I think both of those teams, if you can get the best numbers in the market, are worth it.
Yeah. Bucknell, their offense can be ugly at times, but I like their defense. They went 0-3 in league overtime games. So a bit unlucky that they lost to American, Lehigh, and Lafayette in overtime. I also will say, if Colgate's one of those teams where if they get out, like if this is just perennially for whatever reason, with the Patriot League winner, people will say like, this is a sleeper. Like they're a 15 seed is going to be scary. Sometimes that's true. This Colgate team,
not this time.
No chance. If this Colgate team has 0 chance against any high major that they get matched up, I'll be looking to fade them. Like they are so reliant on records and Woodward, but like they're taking advantage of all these like Patriot League front posts. So they go up against anyone with size. They're done. They're gonna get cooked. By the way, I don't know if anyone saw this. I just happened to put this game on. When I'm sitting around sweating games and monitoring the scoreboard, I will put on any game in college basketball that's close with the final 30 seconds. I put on Loyola Maryland Army, which literally meant nothing for either team. They were already locked into seeds. And Army had the biggest meltdown I've ever seen. Like they were up 6 with I think 28 seconds to go. They fouled up 3. They missed free throws. They fouled up 3. Loyola made them both, and then stole the inbounds and dunked it. Golden DK dunked it at the bell. You got to foul him there. You can't let him dunk it. He's like a 20% free throw shooter.
That's the end of our one shining moment for Loyola Greyhound basketball this year.
So my question,
I'm glad that we got it right under the wire.
What a March moment for Loyola. Speaking of horrendous, I mean, Loyola's home court advantage.
Let's not get into Reitz Arena right now. Listen, you just said something nice. I'll finish it off with, if we're talking Greyhounds from here on out, it's got to be white grapefruit juice, a little Tito's vodka on the rocks with a lime twist. That's the way to get the Greyhounds involved in your March Madness.
I will say, Loyola is one of, I don't know, a couple hundred, maybe 100 and, what's the date? One of, we'll call it 180 teams that's undefeated in March so far. Loyola has not lost in March. But I want to ask you this before we move on. What has happened to Loyola? Loyola was a respectable program under Patsos, right? When they were in the MAAC.
In the MAAC, yep.
And like they would, this was like a top 200 team most years. And now they are, and they had the Aldama flash, but now they are bottom. Like Deion Perry didn't even play that game against Army. That's why the line moved. I guess they just sat out guys because it meant nothing.
I mean, if you're trying to
what's happened? What's happened to the program?
Rant out of me, I got one. The fact that we were living in an era where they played so poorly and they've recruited so poorly at the guard position makes me so mad, because they did have these Spanish imports come in, Aldama being the unicorn, but they had other size come in that was serviceable in this conference. And your campus is in Baltimore. Baltimore is a great high school basketball scene. Like, even getting the third tier guards from some of those programs would be enough, or hitting it once in the transfer portal and getting a high volume, combo guard to just put the offense on his back. I agree. It's insane. It's so frustrating to me that we're not playing a different brand of basketball. The last time that we went to March Madness, over a decade ago, it was because we were all in the full court press. We were playing that annoying defense that we were going to exhaust your guys. We were going to, basically have a 5-6 man rotation at guard, wear our own players out, but we were just a nuisance to play. I was there up in Springfield, Massachusetts. They called it Massachusetts. Great branding there from that league. But we won against, I think, Fairfield like 49-45 because we were willing to play a different brand of basketball. When you're consistently in the bottom 30 of KenPom, or you don't even need advanced stats, just look at your goddamn record, you suck. You got to play a different brand of basketball. You got to do something defensively. You got to do something in recruiting. So it's so frustrating to me, because for a school that is nationally known for lacrosse, where to be a good lacrosse program, you need to get 30 good guys into your program. To be good in basketball in the Patriot League, you need 2 guys. You need 2 guys. Let's get an NIL collective together. Let's throw some money around. Let's do something, because it shouldn't be this hard, given the fact that we have some parts that are actually pretty comparable to our Patriot League, contemporaries. So that's it for the Loyola basketball rant.
Remember, they had one year with Andre Collins. Remember that year? And like
Andre Collins, I had an Andre Collins jersey hanging in my my closet. Number 2.
I think he went for like 40 a couple times. He could fill it up. He transferred. So that was probably in 05, 06. He transferred from Maryland. Had the original transfer. This was before transfers were a thing. He was on the Maryland national title team. Do you know that?
He transferred in. I transferred in at the same time. He got to be the starting point guard. I finished second to be the announcer. Patsos gave me a shot, but I didn't get it. So
I think he was on the 01 Maryland team. A Maryland fan will correct me if I'm wrong. And then played for Loyola Maryland in 06. He was like the original, the OG, like 6-year transfer.
Volume shooter, led the country in scoring, took like,
probably
20 shots a game.
In, usage for sure. All right. That's as much Loyola Maryland basketball talk as you will hear. I can guarantee you this. If I can guarantee you one thing, You will not hear more Loyola Maryland basketball talk on any podcast this March. All right. Well, one more. Are you gonna Loyola Maryland first round game? Any thoughts?
No, I pass. I'm not doing it to
At
myself.
Navy? Talk about a team
You
with
know what,
no
Stuck?
home court advantage.
Here's the thing, Stuck. I like this league, and I'm not going to subject myself to betting or watching Loyola basketball. I wrote them off early in the year. I'm glad I did. I faded them a couple times successfully. It's time to put them in a box until next year. Maybe I'll get excited. Maybe I'll get a new head coach. But no, it's just going to be my main play on Lehigh at 12-1 and a little sprinkle on Bucknell.
If yeah, you want to talk about no home court advantage? I have Navy dead last in the country. 1 point. That's all their home court advantage is worth to me. 1 point. 1 measly point. They're projected to win. I don't know. Probably be like a 7. God, Loyola's so bad. 7-point underdog against Navy. If you like bad offense, watch Navy Loyola Maryland. And if you like bad defense too, you get 2 for 1. All right. Navy's just going to turn Loyola over the entire game. That's the problem. It's finally March, so you know what that means. It's time to say top of the morning to the most famous St. Patrick's Day Shamrock Shavers, our new sponsor, Manscaped. Don't just chase rainbows this March. Make your own pot of gold and groom your little leprechaun with the leaders in below-the-kilt care. Clear your clover forest with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com and use code BBOC for 20% off plus free shipping. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is your new lucky charm, and it's fully waterproof. So go ahead, shave by the misty moors, shave under a waterfall, shave while betting a second half total. The world is yours. Get 20% off and free shipping with code BBOC at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with code BBOC at manscaped.com. This St. Patrick's Day, make sure your hairy little leprechaun is luckier than ever with Manscaped.